Hello students, I hope you're doing well. In this video, I will be covering from chapter 10 to chapter 13 of Things Fall Apart. So stay tuned, listen to the video that is going to be placed after this clip, and let me know if you find this helpful so that I can keep posting more. Do like the video if you find it helpful, and subscribe to my channel, and also share it with your friends. So yeah, see you later. Assalamualaikum guys, I hope all of you are doing well. Today we will be discussing chapter 10 to chapter 13, and in this chapter we will be seeing how the novel progresses further. So the thing that we have to keep in mind is that so far we are mainly concerned with what is happening inside Igbo culture, and we are concerned with the shortcomings of Igbo culture and the positive positive traits of Igbo culture so far. And we are seeing the kind of society that we have been presented with. There has been no sign of the white people and the colonizers. There has been no sign of the invaders, in other words. And we are mostly concerned with how the society came to this society. And one thing that we have to keep in mind is that Achebe is concerned with presenting a society that is in no way perfect. Okay? Although he is reconstructing Igbo society, he is reconstructing a pre-colonial Africa, pre-colonial Igbo society in specific, and pre-colonial Africa in general. Okay? Yet he does not believe, as you know, as you can witness from the kind of narrative that you are presented with, he does not believe in glorifying or whitewashing or kind of romanticizing the pre-colonial Africa. He presents it, or strives to present it, it seems, in a very realistic kind of a way. ठीक है, आप देखिए कि there are so many problems that we are presented with in the pre-colonial Africa. The kind of society that we are presented with, it has its positives, but it definitely has its negatives too. ठीक है, और negatives में जो कि अभी तक हमने discuss किया वो ये है कि how hierarchical it was, how capitalistic it was, how how individualistic some people were in it. ठीक है, सबसे पहले तो उसमें एग्जांपल आ जाती है हमारे अकॉनको की. ठीक है, बिकॉज अकॉनको was one of the person who was just so driven towards power. He was so focused on gaining power and becoming the best person and the most popular and the strongest person and the most well-known person in his tribe, that he just made sure that he neglected every other every other thing and every other possibility in his life. He was so focused on becoming just the most successful person in the world, in the Igbo culture. And because of that, he was very authoritarian. He was very cruel towards people around him. He was humiliating and basically a bully. This is not to say that Okonkwo was a bad person altogether, or he was a bad person completely. It's just to say that he was a very complicated person, and he had his flaws too, and he had his positive qualities too. The positive qualities that we are presented with are his his ability to work very hard, his ability to face the difficulties very, very bravely, and his hard to defeat spirit, and his bad qualities or his negative qualities may be counted when we talk about his inability to show any compassion towards people around him, towards his family, towards his friends, towards everyone who is lesser than him. Yani कि for him status meant the only thing. It was the only thing that counted. Okay? And when we are concerned with a person like that, and when we compare this kind of a person and this kind of a mentality with the Western civilization at hand, we get to see and we get to notice how many similarities there are between this kind of society and the Western society that is just about to conquer them. Okay? Usually Western people, or people who, even Eastern people as well, mostly, in general, it is assumed that the Western society was very different from the Eastern society that it conquered, or African society that it conquered. But if we look at it very closely, there are so many similarities between the hierarchical societies of Africa and the hierarchical societies of the West. The only difference is that the hierarchical and the authoritarian and the capitalist societies of the West, they were much more powerful, so they were able to dominate the African societies. Okay? Had it been Africa which had the same kind of power, the same magnitude of power, Africa would have been doing the same kind of thing. ये हमारा dilemma है that we think that human beings are belonging to, human beings belonging to different parts of the world, they have a different, they would have done differently. Okay? They would have done anything differently. It's just that anyone who has power is bound to, be hierarchical and authoritarian. That is why it is so important to strive for equality for all. Okay? Because anyone who is given more power is bound to exploit it. In order to understand this, you may read Animal Farm by George Orwell. In that farm, basically a revolution takes place by the animals of a farm against their human masters. And once the human masters have been, defeated and animals gain control of the farm, hierarchy establishes, a certain hierarchy establishes, and as a result of that hierarchy, the people who are the animals who are in power, they start behaving exactly the same way as the previous human masters. So this kind of concept can be applied to these African societies as well, or any post-colonial society. And this kind of society may be witnessed when we talk about neo-colonialism, which is when people who have gained independence start behaving the same way as their previous colonial masters. Okay? So we will discuss neo-colonialism later on when we are dealing with Devil on the Cross. But right now you get to see, and you are meant to notice how problematic the society as well is. Now, what is the reason of showing? You must be thinking, what's the reason of showing this kind of a society when Achebe could have easily presented a society without any flaws and without anything? Now, what's the rationale, or what's the motive behind showing a society which is so full of flaws, yet at the same time it's so full of positive things as well? मतलब कि उसने सिर्फ ब्लैक या वाइट में चीज़ों को नहीं शो किया, उसने शो किया है ऐसे जहाँ पे सोसाइटी में प्रॉब्लम्स भी हैं, but there are good things as well. ठीक है? So he could have easily sugar-coated his narrative, but he doesn't. So what's the rationale behind that? I want you to answer me in an email. Okay? You can answer me this in your email, and I do wait for your responses. Those people who are not responding, they will be considered they will be considered as absent in the discussion. ठीक है? सो आप लोग रिस्पॉन्ड किया करें, जो डिस्कशन होती हैं, जो मैं आपको कहती हूँ कि उसके आंसर्स दें, उसको आप अच्छी तरह से रिस्पॉन्ड किया करें. थिंक अबाउट इट, रीड आर्टिकल्स अबाउट इट, देयर इज प्लेंटी ऑफ मटेरियल ऑनलाइन, यू कैन रीड सो मच अबाउट इट, सो डू दैट. ठीक है? ओके. So in chapter 10 we are concerned with the proceedings of the trial. Okay? So there are these proceedings taking place, and there is this conflict, a family conflict basically, that is presented to the judges, and then they listen to both sides, and then they present their judgment. यहाँ पे जो चीज़ फोकस करने वाली है वो ये है कि how women are basically marginalized in these court proceedings. This is very, very important, because the treatment that women are meted out in the society that we are presented with. This will be the same treatment that African people, or later on the whole of the East, will be meted out with, after the colonizers take over. Okay, so we also get to see that not only is there marginalization taking place at the level of economic front, but also at the level of gender. Okay, so in the previous chapters we studied how a Congo is very rude with this person who is not very powerful. Let me just come back in a second. I need to okay, sorry for the interruption. There's this noise going on at the back. There are probably some builders or something, and I find it very, very distracting. Okay, so what was I talking about? So in this society, not only is there discrimination and marginalization going on when it comes to people who are less economically influential, but also at the level of gender. Okay, so the women, they are completely excluded from everything important that goes on, and in these court proceedings too, and in the whole structure, it is dominated by men, and that also shows how problematic this society was, and how it kind of discriminated against women too. Okay? And as the narrative progresses, we will see that there are various different segments which were discriminated against. Okay? Not only women, but also people who were weak. Okay? So there was this hierarchy between the powerful and the weak, okay? Which was very, very problematic, and it resulted, and these were the reasons. These were the very reasons why these people were defeated very easily when the colonizers came. Okay, these were the very reasons which actually proved to be, which actually provided the colonizers with a lot of leverage. Okay, so we will read about that later on. जब उसको सारा कुछ unfold होगा तो हम लोग उसको discuss करते जाएंगे. Okay, so the Igbubu are introduced. Now, who are the Igbubu? ठीक है, ये आपने अच्छी तरह से इसकी डिस्क्रिप्शन पढ़नी है. What role do they play in the society, and how important they are in the society. और इन्हीं Igbubu में there is this evil forest. So who is evil forest, and what does that Igbubu do? ठीक है, and why are these people so important? Also note that history of the 9 clans is given. ठीक है, एक और चीज़ जो आपने देखनी है वो ये है कि why is this history presented now? Okay, we are done with 9 chapters, and after the 9 chapters, जो writer है, all of a sudden he goes and tells us about the history of Igbo people. Why is that? ठीक है, why now? Why didn't he tell it in the beginning? इसके बारे में भी आप सोचो, मुझे बताएंगे क्यों. अच्छा, ये जो court proceeding है ना, इसको you have to read it carefully, and you have to ponder on its significance to the narrative. Why has Achebe added this scene? What's the significance? Why does it matter so much for us to know how court proceedings took place in that Igbo culture? What importance, what significance does it have to the narrative? You need to tell me that. You need to think about it, and you need to tell me that. I want to hear your opinion on it. Come to chapter 11. In chapter 11, there is this fable that is narrated to Ezenma by Achebe. Now, Achebe is Akonko's wife, I think second wife or third wife. and she has this one daughter, Zenma, and Zenma is one of she's a Conquer's favorite child, by the way, who he keeps on wishing that she was a boy, okay, because he is still, he's afflicted by this dilemma that one has to be a boy or a man in order to be loved, okay. So he keeps on wishing that, okay. So the relationship that Vifi has with Zenma is also very important to the tale, to the novel, to the narrative. And you need to tell me, but the fable that she tells Zenma is also obviously very, very important, and it has like, it's very important as far as post-colonial perspective is concerned. Now, in that tale, in that fable, there is this party of animals, party of birds actually, which is going somewhere, and they are going to decide something, and they are going to do something, and a tortoise, he wants to be included in the party too. अब मुझे ये बताइए कि what do you make of that fable? How important do you think it is? What does it symbolize? What does it represent? Who does this tortoise represent? Why and how does he deceive the birds that are there? Okay, there are different ways that he deceives them. He doesn't do it through power, through physical power. He does it through his cunning. Okay, and he does it in a very political kind of a manner, in a political sort of a manner. Okay, he's very strategic in his deception. Okay, so you need to read it very, very carefully. If you read this this fable and you try to understand it, you will be able to understand everything that happens in this narrative. This narrative is basically, आप कह लें कि this narrative has been presented to you in allegorical form through this fable. Another thing that I want you to notice, I want you to keep in mind, and I want you to read about, is how allegory is used in the postmodernist and the post-colonial texts. What importance, ये आपको question भी आ सकता है बिल्कुल. It would be a very good question. What importance does allegory have in the post-colonial narratives? How is it important? Okay. Do let me know. He says something along the lines of all of you. इसका मतलब मुझे बताएं. How is representation important when it comes to post-colonial texts? ठीक है. How अच्छा, let me just tell you a little bit. Whenever we discuss post-colonial texts, whenever we discuss how people gain their independence, we are also primarily discussed with the politics of representation. Okay? And that representation is very, very important because it lets us know that the person who has this power or this ability to represent is the person who basically has this hegemony over everything that goes on in a society. Okay? The person who has this ability to speak in the society, the person who has this ability to forward his thoughts or express his thoughts in a society is very, very has the whole power to change the whole course of a society. Here you see that this tortoise, he very conveniently and very cunningly takes that power of representation from the birds, and then he uses it for the economic exploitation of the birds. यहाँ पे आपको देखिए, he was soon chosen as the man to speak for the party because he was a great orator. ठीक है? This is the person. This tortoise. He is chosen for representation of all the birds because he has a hegemony over discourse. He has this ability to speak very very conveniently, ठीक है, sorry, very very convincingly you would say, ठीक है. So how is this related to exploitation? How is it related to political exploitation and economic exploitation? What is its goal, ठीक है. How can we relate this course, ठीक है, to the exploitation that goes on after it? यहाँ पे भी आप देखिए कि we can relate this politics of representation to this as well. There were many women, but they looked on from the fringe like outsider. Here too, there is a lack of representation on the part of the women, and whatever goes on in society is represented by the men. So the representatives, the igwuku that we are concerned with, they are mostly men, right? तो यहाँ पे जो भी वो decision लेंगे, जो भी वो कुछ करेंगे, that will be decided from their point of view, ठीक है. And women would always occupy the fringes of society, and they would always be treated as outsiders, ठीक है. इसी तरह से you must remember that in chapter 4 there was this incident where a person tries to speak his mind, and Okonko stops him immediately, and he doesn't let him speak. That also shows that his power of representation was taken away from him by somebody who is more powerful, okay? So that is also that politics of representation, and how discourse is hijacked by those who are in power, and how that hijacking is very very symbolic, and it's very very important, and how it leads to exploitation. अब ये जो फेबल आपने पढ़ी है, इसको अच्छी तरह से रिलेट करें with what happens in the novel later on. You can be asked a question on that too. Okay, तो आपने देखना है कि how does it foreshadow what comes later on. The arrival of the priestess. अच्छा, in this chapter another important thing happens, and that is when the priestess arrives at Akonko's place and takes away Zinma, ठीक है. तो क्यों वो लेके जाती है Zinma को? Where does she take her? Why does that happen? What's the background to all of that? How do her parents react to the situation? How is their reaction different from each other, and what does it tell us about their characters? ये बहुत important है, इसको अच्छी तरह से देखिए. This is important because Akonko behaves in a very different way, and Zinma's mother behaves in a very different way. And why is their conduct different? What does it show about their characters? It's very very important, so relate with that too. America's daughter's Yuri and give wedding. Okay, now we have another event in chapter 11, and that tells us about the wedding ceremony that happens in the novel. And why is that added? That's added because we want to know about the pre-colonial Igbo, right? Igbo culture, and weddings are a very important part of that culture. So obviously that cannot be missed. So in order to have that wholesome view of that culture, Achebe has added that as well. Lekin, you must notice that these weddings, they are not just presented as as an occasion to just celebrate, or they are not presented in a very benign kind of a way. They have a lot, like if we read them thoroughly, if we read them carefully, we can come to know about a lot of details and a lot of things about their culture, okay? And they invite a lot of exploration and analysis. Now, while they are, waiting for that, for the arrival of the in-laws of Obirika's daughter, they are discussing about. They basically discuss another village, and that village is called Omiki. And they are talking about how prosperous that village is. अब ये देखिए कि they discuss how how the people of the village, they are very very cunning, and a lot of looting and a lot of thieving happens at the marketplace. But they also very very quickly say that the reason for that prosperity is basically a medicine that these people have. यहाँ से भी हमें पता चलता है कि how again these people relied very much on on superstition. मतलब कि उनको ये होता था कि हाँ cunning तो है, but at the same time these people must have a medicine which helps them, and by medicine they basically mean magic. ठीक है, कि कोई ऐसी दवाई है जो वो पिला देते हैं, या उनके पास कोई ऐसा नुस्खा है basically जो वो जिसकी वजह से people have this they are prospering so much, right? So आप ये भी देखिए कि again and again they attribute even the economic prosperity and even anything that happens in their society to medicine and magic and superstition, and that shows us how their society is very predominantly superstitious. Or because daughters-in-law are expected to bring an adequate number of pots of wine, this would signify their socio-economic status. ठीक है, यहाँ पे भी आप देखें कि बहुत important है. Obrika is basically discussing कि the in-laws are coming and they better bring a lot of wine. If they're not bringing a lot of wine, that means that they are just close-fisted. अभी वो आगे कहेगा, ठीक है. So this is to हमारे जैसे यहाँ पे होता है ना कि we have these traditions of giving jahez to our daughters, and we have this tradition of receiving this bari, जिसको हम पता नहीं इंग्लिश में क्या कहते हैं, the kind of baggage and everything, the kind of gifts that are given to the bride when she comes. So usme a lot of judgment is passed in that process, and when the bari arrives at the bride's place, it is exhibited to everyone who is there, to all the guests, and all the bari and all and everything that is received by the bride is taken. It basically decides the status of the groom. If the groom is not able to provide that kind of gifts and that kind of money and everything, then he is considered to be unworthy basically. ठीक है, a groom's worth is decided by the kind of money he is able to provide. ठीक है, ये तो हमारी society में बहुत common है. So this is also very common in their society as well. The marriage proposals, they were judged by how much money the in-laws were able to bring. अगर वो नहीं ला सकते तो इसका मतलब है कि they are not worthy of respect. I hope our in-laws will bring many pots of wine. Although they come from a village that is known for being close-fisted, yet they ought to know that Achebe is the bride for a king. यानी कि वो कह रहा है कि मेरी बेटी जो है मेरा बहुत like Obrika was a well-known man. He was very stable. He was very prosperous. ठीक है, तो वो कह रहा था कि मेरी बेटी जो है उसका जो status है, it is obviously very high. So अगर those people, they are not able to match that status, then they should be ashamed of themselves. So basically यहाँ तक chapter 12 तक we get to know the tiny little details about their culture, about how they spend their different festivals, about how they celebrate their week of peace, about how how basically they celebrate their weddings, what kind of people are respected in their society, what kind of people are not respected in their society, how meritocratic their society is, how capitalist their society is, and how people are marginalized on what on what basis and things like that. अब जो हाल है ना last chapter, ये जो last chapter of part 1, it is very very significant क्योंकि यहाँ पे there will be a climax, ठीक है, and हमें इसको बहुत गौर से पढ़ना है in order to understand what happened. So okay, सबसे पहली बात यह है कि this chapter has a very ominous kind of beginning, kind of opening, ठीक है, where everyone is kind of alerted when there is this announcement going on, and that announcement tells that Azudu has died. Now, who is Azudu? To know that, we have to go back to our previous chapters. Okay? Azudu was the same man who came to Okonko, and he was the oldest person in the village. Okay? In Igbo's village, and he was a very respectable person. He is a well-respected, well-known person, and a highly influential person as well. He had been a great warrior in his lifetime. Okay? So he was respected a lot, right, by the people, and all the decisions that took place in the society in Igbo culture were basically, he was a huge part of all those decisions, all the decisive committees and everything. So in this chapter we get to see that he dies. Okay, there is an announcement made which tells people that Azudu has died, and there is going to be a funeral ceremony at his place. Up the moment Okonko listens to this announcement, the first thing, आप ये पढ़ें इस chapter को खोल के, the first thing that comes to his mind is that Azudu was the one who came to Okonko and told him about the decision that has been taken about Achebe. और उसके बाद जब Okonko फौरन गया था और उसने Achebe के कत्ल में हिस्सा लिया था, ठीक है, उस चैप्टर की मैं बात कर रही हूँ, because that chapter is very very important. The moment Okonko hears about his death, he is reminded of he is reminded of Achebe death and the role that he played, the role Okonko played in his death. ठीक है, तो आपने पढ़ना है और आपने सोचना है कि why Okonko thinks of that, what is Okonko reminded of when he hears of the death. ठीक है. Now, अच्छा, एक और चीज़ जो हमें जाननी है वो ये है कि जो बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है वो है the funeral ceremony that takes place in this chapter. The funeral ceremony, it tells us a lot about the popularity of the person who has died. आप ये देखिए कि all the Igbo, they also come to this ceremony. All the Igbo, some of them are very harmless, some of them are, let me see if all the Igbo, they come to the ceremony, and they are performing different rituals, okay? And then we are also told about the importance of the ancestors and the distinguished old men in the culture, ठीक है. तो हमें पता चलता है कि why Azudu is given such burial and such a farewell, ठीक है. And why is that? Because the land of the living was not far removed from the domain of the ancestors, ठीक है. जो उनके elders थे ना, उनको, और जो उनके ancestors थे, ठीक है, the ones who had already died, why were they given so much importance? Because the land of the living was not far removed from the domain of the dead. हम लोग domain of the ancestors, हमारे उसमें या western logic में ये बात मानी जाती है कि people who have died, they have died and they have gone to the next world, ठीक है. And the hereafter, it doesn't really have any connection with this world, ठीक है, बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं है, ठीक है. लेकिन in African culture, the realm of the living and the realm of the dead, they are very very interconnected, and these old men, ये जो खास तौर पे जो बूढ़े लोग होते हैं, because they are just about to die, they have a lot of knowledge about the other world, इसलिए they are respected a lot. ठीक है, these people, these ego people, they used to think that these people who are respectable and they are about to die, they have a lot of wisdom. ठीक है, and they can tell us a lot about the world that we are about to go to, that we are about to visit when we die. So they used to respect these older people, these ancient, you know, men, these distinguished men very very much. ठीक है, there was coming and going between them, especially the festivals, and also when an old man died, because an old man was very close to the ancestors. A man's life from birth to death was a series of transition rites which brought him nearer and nearer to his ancestors. ठीक है, तो वो कहते थे कि जब किसी बूढ़े इंसान का जनाजा होता है उसका मतलब होता है कि there are a lot of ancestral spirits that have, you know, come here and they are visiting the living people और ये वो. तो इसलिए वो जो उस तरह का जो भी funerals होते थे, they used to celebrate those funerals a lot. And there used to be a lot of celebration going on. और आप देखिए कि in this chapter 2 there is a lot of celebration. People are dancing. Even the you know, so many people, they are, you know, firing their rifles, firing their pistols. And another thing that happens is that people are dancing, and in that dancing there's a lot of commotion going on, a lot of festivity going on. People are sad, but also they are celebrating. They are giving a farewell that is befitting a man of such status. ठीक है, वो उसको खुदाफिज कहते हैं. और and there is this speech as well in which this Gugu, he says that if you were any less in this world, I would have wished you to gain more power and more status in the hereafter. But since you have been such such a what would the right words for that, such a popular or such a well respected man in this world, I wish you the same for the hereafter too. So ये बहुत ज़्यादा speech भी बहुत ज़्यादा important है. और ये भी आपने I have written somewhere, I think here, that you need to compare this farewell with the one given to Anoka. Anoka की जो farewell है, Anoka को किस तरह दफनाया गया, वो compare करें इसके साथ, तो आपको hierarchy जो है वो और ज़्यादा वाज़ेह हो जाएगी. ठीक है. Now what happens when everyone is celebrating? अचानक क्या होता है कि the rifle that Akonko is holding, the gun that Akonko is holding, it kind of it blasts. ठीक है, and Zuru's son is killed. और उसके बाद क्या होता है कि people are obviously flabbergasted. They don't know what is going on. Everyone is just so surprised that what has actually happened. Why has this little boy, अच्छा उस लड़के की एज भी नोट करें, how old that boy is. And I want you to tell me whether you think this crime that has taken place, was it, what significance does it have? Whether this crime is whether this crime may be called as intentional or unintentional. For the people there, they consider it a completely unintentional crime. और वो उसको क्या कहते हैं? What kind of a crime has he committed? Has Akonko committed? एक तो चीज़ ये है कि क्या crime है उसका, ठीक है, और crime जो है वो किस नौयत का है, what kind of crime that is, how it is categorized, what kind of crimes are there. There are two kinds of crimes, by the way, a female crime and a male crime. एक जो मेल क्राइम होता है वो इंटेंशनल होता है. ठीक है, इंटेंशनली आप किसी का कत्ल कर दो. अनइंटेंशनली जब आप कोई क्राइम करते हो तो उसको फीमेल क्राइम करते हैं. दिस ऑल्सो शोज हाउ जेंडर्ड देयर सोसाइटी वॉज. यानी कि हर चीज़ में दे हैव टू फाइंड बाइनरीज, सेक्शुअल बाइनरीज, जेंडर बाइनरीज. ठीक है, तो क्राइम को भी उन्होंने मेल और फीमेल में डिवाइड किया हुआ. और क्या क्राइम अकॉनको ने किया है वो आपको देखना है. और वो क्राइम क्या है कि since it was an unintentional killing, in their view, it is considered to be a female crime, a crime that is you know, that is of a female nature. ठीक है, यहाँ तक हम इस चैप्टर को ख़त्म करते हैं, इस डिस्कशन को ख़त्म करते हैं. I want you to read this chapter, and especially this this event from a psychoanalytic perspective. ठीक है, यहाँ पे psychoanalytic perspective बहुत ज़्यादा important है. I want you to read about Freud's discussion or his analysis of the crimes or the errors that we do unintentionally, or the things that we do unintentionally, and you need to relate it with this, with your reading of a conquest crime. I want to, maybe I will give you a formal assignment on this too. Let me think, but I want you to start thinking about it. You can start thinking about it right now, right? So this is it for this chapter. Hope to see you very, very soon in the next lecture. Allah Hafiz.